excuse me, we'll have Dr. Mark Minelli, Manager of Health Advocacy Services and CMU's Health Services, at CMU's Health Services rather, and Sally Reyes, Prevention Educator for Health Services. So stay with us and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Welcome to Crosstalk on MHTV and 91 Rock FM. Crosstalk, the show that addresses the current issues that face you as a Central Michigan University student or resident of Mid-Michigan. The phone lines are open. Call 774-3691 or 774-3698. Crosstalk on MHTV and 91 Rock FM, a student production from the Broadcast and Cinematic Arts Department of Central Michigan University. The views expressed in this program are not necessarily those of the university, its faculty, administration, or the Broadcast and Cinematic Arts Department. And now, the host of Crosstalk, Jason Laker.
Hello, welcome again. Tonight we have two segments. The first part we have Mr. Martin Trombley, Director of Mount Pleasant Public Safety, who will be talking with us about the rash of, or the increase in ticketing and arrests of student partiers. And again, in the second segment, we have Dr. Mark Minelli of Health Advocacy Services and Sally Reyes, Prevention Educator. Thank you, Mr. Trombley, for joining us. To start off the show, please set up for us a little bit about what your job is. As director, what role do you play in establishing strategies for enforcement and staffing?
My position is, as you indicated, the Director of Public Safety, and part of that deals with police services. Therefore, when we're dealing with a number of issues, one of which is student parties, I direct those command personnel who establish procedures that will apply to enforcement of city ordinances and other state laws that are related to activities within our community.
Now, last month, Mr. Trombley, you informed the City Commission that the blind pigs, or selling alcohol without a license, have increased significantly. Why do you think this is the case?
Well, I suppose it's speculation on my part, but I think that there is a profit to be made if a person set up a party where there is a charge to the party goer, and as long as it's done covertly without a license, there's some money to be made. So I suspect that the risk is viewed as not as great, and until that is known to most people, there isn't any fear of any serious repercussions as a result. Therefore, I think people are more likely to take advantage of trying to do it.
Okay. Now, how does this type of scenario, this increase in partying, if that is in fact the case, how does this compare to the end-of-the-world parties of the past?
Well, I would not suggest to you that there's increase in parties, but you asked if there were increase in the use of what we commonly refer to as the blind pig, and that's nothing more than the selling of alcohol without a license. That has increased. I don't think that partying has increased. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, as far as partying is concerned, that's not an issue where we feel is something that we wish to eliminate. We wish to deal with those issues that are law violations. So we focus on those things that we know are most frequently occurring. In the parties of the past, I think we saw more activities where there was volumes of people and that kind of control problem existed. I'm not certain that that's the case at the moment.
Okay. Now, would you say that you have said that there's an increase in blind pigs, but at the same time, there's other sides where we hear there's in fact an increase in enforcement. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think there is an increase in enforcement, and I think that's a responsibility we have. Since it is, I suspect, directly proportioned to the number of violations that we either observe or suspect are going on. I indicated to you earlier that it's a covert kind of activity. It's covert in that it's got to be secretive in order to not be caught. So people who are conducting the activity and those persons who are loitering in that place of illegal occupation, we believe have increased. So therefore, when we have cited individuals for that violation and cited individuals who have been attending those activities, those numbers have increased over years past.
Now, would you describe for us a scenario that might be seen as a likely situation to be approached by the police on a weekend?
Well, if we are aware that there are parties, and I use the term party in relation to activities that may be planned, where there is a charge for entry and participating with whatever's going on, and there's alcohol involved in that consideration, and that's a terminology that's used in the law. Consideration can be related to almost anything. In some cases, it's the giving of a cup, or it's a selling of a sandwich or some other kind of edible, and give the alcohol, or there's a perception of giving the alcohol with those considerations. All of that is sale under the law. So when that occurs, and there's a charge to allow entry, and we're aware of that, or we hear that it might be going on, then we'll seek out those places, and if we discover them, we'll cite the persons who are conducting the party, and we'll cite people who are also attending, because that's a violation as well.
Okay, Mr. Trombley, let's suppose that there's a scenario wherein a group of individuals who happen to be friends or a fraternity or whatever the situation may be put in money together as part of their share to purchase an alcohol. Now, is it the pooled alcohol that attracts the police?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, that's very common. What I'm telling you is that when the party is covertly suggested that it's open to the public, and it sounds like that's somewhat contradictory. It's not contradictory. It's not advertised the way one might advertise a common business, but it's advertised in order to get people to come, obviously, so that there is some financial gain by conducting the activity. When that occurs, it's, by the way, a felony, and that's a very serious matter. And so we seek those places out, and in any way we can find them and cite the individuals for conducting that kind of activity. I
see. Now, what is your department doing differently this year in terms of enforcement? Do you have a bad taste in your mouth after last year's Western weekend, or?
No, I think that so oftentimes, if you'll forgive me, the media sometimes wants to play that up because it is it's an activity or an event that needs giving attention. I don't think there is any negative attitude on the part of law enforcement relative to that, but we have an obligation to enforce those kinds of violations when we find them, and if they're not, overtly visible, then we've got to discover where they are and investigations to discover them.
Do you seem to find more violations through answering complaints or through routine patrol?
Well, I think it's a combination of two things. You asked me earlier about what kinds of increases have we seen this year. We have increased our enforcement on the persons who are attending parties, and that violation probably wasn't cited in the past the way it is now. And so that's an increase for those who are loitering in a place of illegal occupation. So I think that the activities are not... well, it's a fact of life in a community like ours, and so we're going to continue to be consistent in our enforcement.
Now, on some occasions, you have solicited the services of CMU's DPS, county, and state police. Are you short-staffed?
Well, we've presented information to our city administration indicating that we believe that the staff level of the department is inconsistent with the kinds of activities we're involved in, and we've presented that material to them through the budget process. So, but the connotation that you present here is that the use of other departments is not only because of staff level of our own department, but we have a very strong cooperative approach to dealing with our community problems. So it's not uncommon to see that we'll be involved with the county sheriff department, DPS, CMU, or the state on any given issue. But when we are dealing with density of population, with increase of people coming to the community through the university, then we're needing those people right away, and so they're available to us.
I see. Now, there have been allegations, mostly, I suppose, by some students who have been cited, that the police have in fact been harassing students in an effort to reduce that activity. How would you respond to that?
I don't believe that we have had any indication that we harass anyone, and I guess using that terminology, I don't think it's applicable. I would not minimize the fact that we're rather aggressive in trying to reduce those violations that I've cited this evening. So yes, we are aggressive in our enforcement efforts, and we intend to maintain that kind of approach to reduce the possibility of violations and, quite frankly, to reduce the possibility of injury to people who find themselves in those kinds of situations where they're overindulging in alcohol and so on.
What type of training do your officers go through as far as preparing for these types of activities?
We have an obligation to train our officers on a regular basis, both in terms of maintaining their skills and because of the vicarious liability that cities find themselves in. So we're training our officers continuously in the updating of the knowledge of the law, on techniques of investigation, identification of drugs and other kinds of things, alcohol enforcement, a variety of issues, and we do this on an annual basis.
Okay. Before I ask the next question, I want to remind the audience that, in fact, our lines are open, 774-3691, and so if you do have any questions for Mr. Trombley, please don't hesitate to call in right now. Again, let's get back to this interview. Lieutenant William Yeagley has indicated that your department is interested in using enforcement and education to inform people about party laws, and the enforcement seems to have increased. What type of educational programming does your department do?
Well, we do a number of things. We present programs to schools and students and so on our enforcement efforts and informing people as to what the law is. We have in the past established a liaison between our department and the university and university student groups. We have not had that as a permanent position, and we're seeking to reestablish that more consistently in terms of having someone available, and that's one of the responsibilities of Lieutenant Yeagley. That's a recent promoted position in our department. In addition to his responsibility to coordinate all investigations, he has the charge to reestablish that liaison between our department and student groups. So our educational efforts are in terms of trying to inform those people who we serve on the law and what might be expected for them to be complying with the law.
Now, is your department approaching student groups to have dialogues and programming?
Yes, we have. Both Lieutenant Yeagley, myself, and Corporal Brugger, we have, and a number of other officers who have taken the initiative to make those personal contacts. We think that's a very good approach to maintain this whole attitude of voluntary compliance. We would prefer not to have to be involved in these kinds of enforcement activities, but there are those who are, I guess, suggest that there are ways to circumvent the law, and therefore we're constantly at odds with people who are dreaming up new ways to break the law. So I guess if we maintain that positive relationship, we can assume that voluntary compliance would be high, and it wouldn't be as costly for the city to maintain an aggressive approach to reducing those violations.
All right. We're going to continue with this in a time, but first we're going to go to break. Before we do that, remind you, the phone calls 774-3691. This is your opportunity to talk with the director of the Mount Pleasant Department of Public Safety. We'll be right back after this.
From the McGruff Files, a story about some folks who got organized to take back their neighborhood. The place was getting run down, crime and drugs were out of hand, and honest folks felt like prisoners in their own homes. Neighbors decided to do something, so they worked together and with the police. Things happened pretty quick after that. Weekly meetings led to community action. Vacant lots were cleaned up and fenced. Neighbors even started planting gardens. Nice job, Sherry. Real nice. All the folks pitched in. Garbage was recycled. Street lamps were fixed. Before you knew it, they turned a bad situation around. The neighbors had their neighborhood back. How about that? Way to go, guys. Things are looking better for these folks nowadays. Yeah! Working together works, so don't get scared, get organized. Pick up a pencil and write this down, and I'll send you my free booklet. Let's get the neighbors together and help me take a bite out of crime.
This blue represents pride and determination. The red, the courage and sacrifice shown by those few who knew what it was to stand alone. The white, honor and integrity. The same could be said for this red, white, and blue. Is it any wonder so few can wear it?
I'd like to be under the sea in an octopus's garden in the shade.
Some kids take to swimming like a fish to water, and some don't. In fact, any child can drown in just 2 inches of water. Make the water safe for your child with the Red Cross Water Safety Program.
Under the sea in an octopus's garden in the shade.
Welcome back to Crosstalk on 91 Rock FM and MHTV. The phone lines are open for your comment or question. Call 774-3691 or 774-3698. If the lines are busy, keep trying. Crosstalk on MHTV and 91 Rock FM.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us once again. If you just did tune in, we have Martin Trombley, director. First about the parties and the tickets that have been increasing this year. And then after the next break, we will have in some guests to talk about alcoholism, problem drinking, and programming on our campus. Now, I have heard from our director that we have a telephone call. Is that the case? Okay, we have a phone call. Can you hear me? Phone caller. Then. Okay, we have Grant, who is a Fort Lauderdale sophomore. Grant, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, you'll need to speak up, though.
Okay, I sure can try.
Okay, what is your question?
Well, my question for Mr. Trombley is why the particular focus on the student rather than the average local adult, in that if a student can responsibly have guests over, and personally I'm not in a position of footing the bill for a large party, but if my friends wanted to come over and either pool money for cocktails or food, or if they wanted to pool money and each buy pints of alcohol and pool that together and make a trash can, why should we be why is there an overrepresentation of tickets against us and no publication of the adults in the area that have problems?
Okay, Grant, stay on the line, and we'll allow you to answer that question now, Mr. Trombley.
Well, first of all, as we've indicated earlier, that if the pooling of money occurs and the alcohol and other items are purchased for a group of people, and there is no invitation to others to join through admission costs, then you don't have a violation. But if, on the other hand, there is some pooling of funds in order to raise money to buy alcohol so that the public might be invited, and that invitation, then there's a charge at the door to come in. Now you've got a violation, and we obviously have to do whatever we have to do to minimize that. Now, the overrepresentation that you referred to, I'm not certain that is the case, but we have not had an occasion, at least since I've been here, where, as he refers to the adult population, there's been any quote-unquote blind pig activity. So I don't know that we can avoid recognizing that those kinds of things are occurring, and therefore we have to, conduct our investigations.
So these activities are somewhat unique to the students.
Well, I wouldn't say they're unique, but on the other hand, the concentration is in the student area.
Okay, Grant, do you have a follow-up question?
Well, basically then what you're saying is that if I were to, first of all, have an invitation printed up for my guests, and secondly, if they were to pool as a communal group our funds or our alcohol, then that is not a violation, correct?
As long as you're not charging persons to come to your party, and there is a pooling of funds to purchase that alcohol just for those persons already there, I don't know that there, in my view, based on what you've told me, that doesn't sound like a violation.
All right, Grant, thank you for calling.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Trombley. And before the break, we were talking a little bit about the concept of programming. For a moment, let's brainstorm the type of programming or the dialogue that you'd like to see happen between the law enforcement officials in the city and the university community, and particularly the students. What can we do?
Well, I think that one of the things that we have been trying to establish ever since I've been here is a position, a full-time position that would be a liaison position between the department and that particular community that we're serving, and I'm referring to the younger people within the community, and we can say those are students at the college level as well as the high school and junior high school level. I think we do a very poor job of prevention. I think that law enforcement, by its very nature, is forced into a posture of reaction as opposed to some kind of action that emphasizes prevention. I believe that liaison would be much more effective in preventing some of the things that we have to take enforcement action on. However, unfortunately, when we start to deal with budget constraints, we're not able to implement such programming. If there were ways to convince those who hold the purse strings that that's an important function, then I think that would be very beneficial for a community like ours, particularly in view of the fact, as the caller suggested, there is a proportion of violations in that particular group of people, and we might be more effective in dealing with the issue by having somebody who is constantly in contact with student leaders and student groups and those kinds of things.
Okay. Now, Central, of course, offers a number of majors, or courses of study that are related to your field, criminal justice, communication, sociology, that type of thing. And bearing in mind that there is a lack of, or I should say that we're lacking in communication effectiveness between your department and students in the university community, what about the possibility of setting up internships, which are, by their very nature, less expensive and an opportunity to work with students, even those interested in going into teaching, to work with your department and talking to the younger schools, and then to have people working with your department students who are working between your department and Central student body?
Well, we have, and I guess the tradition has been along here, we've had internships in our department. As a matter of fact, we have one at the moment that is working with us and trying to explore this whole business of the community policing, and that's what I was referred to in this liaison kind of approach. But while that is very effective, and it serves both us and the residents of the community, it's still not that contact with the police officer. And I think that the more we have that personal contact with whatever part of the community or the community as a whole, if we don't have that personal contact, it's sort of abstract, and therefore we are reactive. We respond to complaints as opposed to deal with them before they reach that point of complaint. So yes, it's wise to use internships. We have and we will continue to do that. It's been very beneficial to us. We had an internship this summer that helped us conduct a survey in determining what kind of service people thought we gave them. But returning to the issue of students and police, I think we should be doing more proactive kinds of things, and at the moment it would be very difficult to establish that because our staff level and our responsibility really point in the direction of reaction.
All right. Now, we've talked about the role of the students, the role of your department in these things. It starts somewhere, this concept, this notion of education. What about Central's housing program, for instance? Most freshmen, most first-year students go through our housing program. Do you think that there's an avenue to begin some sort of rapport?
Yes, I think so. And I think the possibilities are great. I mean, once you have established some kind of programming where we would have the opportunity to explore all those things. But what I've been saying is that the department is set in such a fashion in its staffing level and its responsibilities to be more reactive than proactive. Therefore, we sort of are a hit and miss. I think the community does a good job of providing that sense of security for the general population. But I think it's remiss on our part not to direct some special efforts toward the student population, because that is a good portion of our population, our residents, and I think that special consideration is not inconsistent with good police practice. So it's been our effort and our goal to try to establish such a thing. Hopefully in the future we might be able to do that.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming on today. What we're going to do now is, again, extend the opportunity. People out there who have some ideas, give Mr. Trombley a call. And thank you for coming on, Mr. Trombley. Appreciate it. And when we come back, we're going to be talking to Mark Minelli and Sally Reyes. So stay with us and get on the phone.
Tony La Russa, Major League Baseball manager. If you own a pet, you strike a bargain. You get loyalty and trust, a clown when you're sad, and someone to laugh at all your jokes. In return, he needs the basics: food, shelter, love. Love means getting your pet spayed or neutered. Even if we love cats and dogs, there just aren't enough homes for them all. Have your pet spayed or neutered now, because they're counting on us to keep our part of the deal. For more information, contact the Humane Society of the United States, Washington, D.C.
You begin with raw steel. Shape it with fire, muscle, and sweat. Polish it to razor-sharp perfection. What you end up with is a Marine. We're looking for a few good men with a medal to be Marines.
Tonight, Dolores had a few drinks, did some crack, and ended up another tragic story. Only she doesn't know it yet. Drugs make you forget. And if you forget how risky sex can be, you could catch the AIDS virus and not know it for months, even years. AIDS, another way drugs can kill.
When your employees train with the National Guard and Reserve, they learn to be better team players, better decision makers, and better leaders. It's training that makes them better at serving our country. And better when they come back to work for you.
Bill's back.
Be a hero. Give your employees the freedom to protect ours.
Welcome back to Crosstalk on 91 Rock FM and MHTV. The phone lines are open for your comment or question. Call 774-3691 or 774-3698. If the lines are busy, keep trying. Crosstalk on MHTV and 91 Rock FM.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm Jason Laker. For those of you who just joined us, We have with us today, for the second segment of the show, Dr. Mark Minelli from Health Advocacy Services and Sally Reyes, a prevention coordinator. It is Alcohol Awareness Month, October, and with it comes the revelation that there are still problems with substance abuse, not only on our campus but in the world around us. So we're going to talk about that today. And of course, the phone lines are open, 774-3691, and please feel free to call in. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
I'm going to start with you, Dr. Minelli. Tell us about your program, Health Advocacy Services, and also a little bit about yourself.
Sure. The Health Advocacy Services is a division of the University Health Services, and basically we're doing the health education, health promotion activities on campus. One of our key programs is the Wellness Resource Center in the University Center by the Down Under Club, which has just a very large variety of free literature for the students on holistic health, just about any health topic you can think of. We have peer educators that help staff it. They're called Peer Advocates for Healthy Lifestyles, or the PALS programs, and they go out and actually give some of the presentations that we have to offer. And also at Health Services, people can stop by for free literature, posters, pamphlets, and just a variety of things, presentations. So we're very active on campus in programming and trying to spread preventative health messages.
Okay, we'll come back to the programming end in just a moment, but Sally, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason.
You're the prevention educator for health services. What does that mean?
Well, I do the educational programs for the students that are referred to Student Life. They run 4 weeks and then a one-on-one session. These are the students that break the rules, the alcohol policy in the dorms, housing.
Okay, in the residence halls.
Resident halls, yeah, right.
They were rather particular, yes. Okay, now what type of violations would typically get a student sent to you to use your services?
Well, quite common is a keg in the room, or cases of beer and loud parties, and they get a little rambunctious.
Yes. Now, are students who say have not violated any, or I should say have not been caught, whatever, are you open to having students just come and approach you with their problems of alcohol abuse or substance abuse?
Yes, that's really one of the good, fun things of my job, is that I am available to students on campus. And we have just recently formed a student organization. It's called R3P, Recovering Persons Prevention Project. And this is to involve recovering students, and also there are community members. And we serve as a liaison for students. For instance, if you had a friend and you had some problems with this friend, and you came to me and said, my friend has a problem, I think, with alcohol, and I don't know how to really approach him. If I can get him to come to you, what can you do for him? Let's say you get him to come to me. I then in turn help them to feel comfortable, and then refer them to, if they're willing, to another student approximately their same age and same addiction.
Okay.
R3P has adult children of alcoholics, codependents, Overeaters Anonymous, recovering alcoholics, drug addicts, few non-smokers. It's really come to be quite a lively little organization, and it's stirring up a lot of talk, which is good.
So it's a support group and it does programming?
Well, yes, I guess in a way you could call it a support group. We all have the same thing in common. We're there to assist other people. We refer, I refer students to counselors, any substance abuse programs. We come out any hour of the day or night, and if there's a student in need, we're very pleased to say that we're there. We're not going to babysit them, but we kind of level with them. I'm a recovering person myself, and I think that this right away makes them feel comfortable, and I'm not a professional counselor. So I really feel that the reason this program is working is because they're not threatened, really, and they do have a choice when they talk to me, and whether or not they want to seek professional advice or not.
Okay, I'm going to come back in a little bit to the R3P program and some of the other things you're doing, but to go back to Dr. Minelli, some of the programming that you're doing, particularly Wellness Resource Center, the PALS program, you have some programs available to the university community. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Right now, there's a number of programs to choose from, and Sally's mentioned the R3P group, which is very active during Alcohol Awareness Month. They have so many activities going on that I can hardly keep track of Sally and where she's at and where they're running around to day by day. Some things that students could book that would go out besides the R3P panels are natural high presentations where student peer educators describe and do fun activities kinds of things. What are natural highs without using any type of chemical? We have something called Fit Stop, which is fun fitness testing, which has things like grip strength, flexibility, percent body fat, strength, and a variety of different things. We have AIDS education programs, birth control education programs, and all of our programs are done by peer educators, so they click
and
with their fellow students,
okay.
Yes, and they feel free to ask them personal kinds of questions and things because they're the same age, and the research shows that this is quite effective with using peers to talk to other students, and then they get to actually see this stuff in action. It's fun, it's educational, and it creates awareness.
Okay, now these programs are typically seen in the residence halls. Do you do them elsewhere?
Sometimes. We've gone out to the Greek community. A lot of classrooms will ask for certain parts of programs or materials or films. Because we have a large amount of resources. We just completed a CPR training, Red Cross certified CPR training. We're going to be doing some more of those. So it's a variety of activities, and Sally will probably talk a little bit about some of the R3P things coming up for Alcohol Awareness Month. She has a pool party coming up that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, I've seen flyers for that.
Open AA meetings, tailgate parties, open air concerts, displays, mock bars, so there's a lot of really exciting things going on around campus.
Yes, you sound very excited about the program, and it is a great program. As a resident assistant, I've utilized your services myself. Why don't you share your phone number with us, if you don't mind? In your office, so that we can, for people that want to get programs.
Sure. I'm at 6992, the
On
Wellness
campus,
Center
yes.
on campus. Has two numbers going in. 3203 is the alcohol drug information desk, and the health promotion desk is 3202. And Sally's number is 4333. So there's a variety of numbers to call. But it's just as nice just to come in and see what's there and take a look around at the variety of materials and get some posters and some things and talk to us too.
Okay, we will repeat those numbers later so that those people that wish to utilize the programs, and I do recommend it highly, can do that. Now back to R3P. It's Alcohol Awareness Month once again, and of course the group has been active in all throughout the year, but this month particularly is important because it's an opportunity to sort of network and allow people who may not have been exposed to your program a chance to come in and discuss it with them. Does someone have to be a recovering person to attend your meetings, or can they be someone who knows someone, or can they just come out of curiosity?
Well, they are welcome to come out of curiosity, but mainly the people involved are recovering people from the various codependency, etc., what I mentioned before.
How often do you meet?
Oh, we meet the second and fourth Thursday at 5:30 to 7 in the Wolverine Room at the University Center.
That's every other Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's the second and fourth.
Okay, now before we go on and talking a little bit more about your programs, Dr. Minelli and, of course, Sally, feel free to jump in. Let's do a little definition of terms because not everyone out there is familiar with some of the terms we've been discussing. By that I mean, for instance, let's start with, well, abuse, substance abuse. What does that mean?
I'm not sure who wants to go first. We probably both have. There's so many definitions in the literature. You can find on substance abuse, on alcoholism, there's a variety of things. Substances is a broad category, so it could mean anything from nicotine to alcohol to just a variety of drugs. So substance abuse is a very broad, generic term of abuse, be it physical or psychological abuse.
Okay, and codependency.
I think I'll turn to Sally for that. I think she.
Well, I wanted to talk about the abuse one.
Okay, we'll start with abuse.
My personal opinion is that there's a very thin line between abuse and alcoholism. I'm going to stick right with alcohol. I'm not, I always, when I talk to the students, I say, your chances are you're not an alcoholic, but you're here. Someone sent you here to me. So, what I think you ought to do is take a good, honest look at yourself, and let's look at the honest and open and clear decisions that you have to make for yourself. And sometimes they'll come back and say, well, I don't abuse alcohol. Well, why are you here? Well, I hit a guy in the nose. He was looking at my girlfriend or things. I said, would you have done this if you weren't drinking? Oh, no, I wouldn't have done this. But sometimes we have a saying, too, a group of friends of mine and myself, saying that if alcohol causes you a problem, it is a problem, and you'd better take a good, honest look at yourself. So you can abuse anything, and it can get you in a lot of trouble, from codependency, which I don't really want to discuss. That's another definition that it's so broad that I don't know. It's really difficult for me to define that, but. For instance, I'm a very compulsive personality. I deal off and on with my smoking, and it's a very severe addiction for me, and I'm aware of it, and I play these little games as I did when I was drinking heavily too. That, well, I need this. It's my crutch. It's my friend, and so I kind of make excuses, but. There are just a number of addictions out there. Also in R3P, we have sexual addiction, relationships, abusive relationships. There are all kinds of support groups and recovery programs for just about anything.
And do you coordinate, or the two of you in your program coordinate all of those, and you serve sort of a clearinghouse to match people up that have the various problems with the specific organization or program that's available? Is that more or less how that works?
I don't think I understand you there. You mean...
I guess what I'm trying to say is, among your other programming duties, what you do is you match someone with a problem with an organization or program.
Right.
Okay.
If that's what they want.
Okay.
I certainly, or I'll even talk to them myself, or they can work with a recovering student.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what we're going to do is we're getting towards the end of this part of the segment, and we're going to go to a break. We're going to come back and talk a lot more about your programming. This is just such a valuable resource for those of you out there. If you have any sort of problems or questions regarding compulsive behaviors, codependency is something we need to address again, to kind of, because obviously for someone who works with it to have difficulty defining it, and that's certainly not unusual. We can imagine what it's like out there. So please call, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Now, a few words about raising children.
Run, jump, climb, walk, laugh and cry. Throw, fetch,
Love isn't just something you say, it's something you do. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
From Belleau Wood to Verdun, Okinawa to Iwo Jima, Incheon to Chosin, Kantien to Khe Basra to Kuwait. They've been on the job for 75 years for their country and their corps. Happy 75th birthday to the United States Marine Corps Reserve. Semper Fidelis.
Get your drinking water. Take one. Is your water safe to drink? From the faucet to the sink. Is it good for moms and babies? We want to know and don't be maybe. GEM. G-E-M. GEM. G-E-M. If your water comes from the ground, can you protect what's going down? Keep that water clean and pure. Get some S so you can be sure. GEM can help you understand. GEM can help you make a plan. GEM can help you share the facts. GEM can get you in the act. What's GEM? G stands for groundwater. E stands for education. M, well, that's Michigan. Groundwater education in Michigan.
GEM has something for everyone. Call 517-353-3742 and get involved.
That's a wrap.
The Department of Transportation and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Crosstalk on 91 Rock FM and MHTV. The phone lines are open for your comment or question. Call 774-3691 or 774-3698. If the lines are busy, keep trying. Crosstalk on MHTV and 91 Rock FM.
Welcome back. I'm Jason Laker. This is Crosstalk. We have with us tonight Dr. Mark Minelli from Health Advocacy Services and Sally Reyes, Prevention Educator for Health Services. Before we took our break, we were talking about the semantics of defining codependency. There's been some disputes in the field of counseling and the related fields that have difficulty defining that. Dr. Minelli, can you speak to that?
Sure. The last thing that I read stated that there is no clinical proof that there is such a thing as codependency. Now, theories are what they are. They're intelligent guesses. So we must keep that in mind. And a lot of terms are nebulous, but codependency is somewhat difficult for the clinical people, the psychologists, the scientists to really put their finger on. But I think they're getting closer because there sure are a lot of books out on codependency trying to describe this psychological state.
What is it? What is codependency?
I think Sally we were talking during the break, an interesting little short definition about putting others' needs ahead of your own, which I thought was a nice way of capsulizing that. Sally, you want to?
Well, yeah, that's my opinion, is that I find when I get all involved, say in a family situation, and I'm just totally involved in problems within my home or possibly at work also, that I lose track of myself and what I'm all about. And we kind of have a term for that too, letting someone live rent-free in my brain, and that's not good for me when I focus on someone else's problems, and really I have no control over what other people do. I can be a guide, I can be an example, try to set an example, but I can't take people by the hand and say this is what you're supposed to do or this is what I would like you to do.
And that's really hard when the person happens to be close to you or something of that nature. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. We do have a phone call from Karen, a Leslie sophomore. Karen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, what is your question?
My question is addressed to either of the panelists. If I think I have a friend that could be considered...
Could you hold on to Karen just for a moment if you two would put on your headsets for just a second? Okay, Karen, could you start again?
Yes. I believe that I could have a friend that might be considered an alcoholic, and I'd like to know the appropriate way to go towards them and discuss this with them and maybe direct them towards one of the programs mentioned.
All right, Karen, stay on the line. Would one of you like to respond to that?
Do you want to go first, Sally? Or?
You can.
Okay. I didn't preface that I did substance abuse counseling for 9 years before I came to the university, so I've had a fair amount of dealing with this type of dilemma. There are a number of things you can do. You don't have to wait for somebody to hit bottom, as they call it. You can bring the bottom up. And examples of that are some people leave literature laying around, like little pamphlets they may get from us on drinking and different kinds of topics related to drinking and how that can be destructive. And people start picking these up. Well, what's this doing around? And they start getting little messages, and people start saying things to them. Well, I'm kind of concerned, or I know where there's an AA meeting. I'll take you to one.
Okay.
I'll show you where they're at. I'll take you to a place. And then there's something finally called intervention, which is a very dynamic technique developed by the Johnson Institute, which they say works 7 out of 10 times, where you train the people close to the person to confront the alcoholic or substance abuser in a loving, caring way. And it's very dynamic. I've done the process myself in clinical work, and I've seen it work. I've seen it fail, but I've seen it work, too, to get people into treatment. So there are a number of things. And maybe Sally has some experiences, too, she'd like to share.
Well, speaking from my own experience, I had a number of people try to make a suggestion that I may have a drinking problem. I've had my alcohol poured down the sink. I've had the car keys taken away, a number of things. But I believe in, today, the direct approach. That's only my own personal view, though. I'm saying that your name is Karen, right?
Okay, I think we lost her on the line, but we have the general idea.
That you approach her in an honest and caring way and say, just tell her what you're feeling. I believe that today we need to really get more honest and stop beating around the bush, because we're losing a lot of young people, a lot. And so I'm for the direct approach, and you might even suggest that about our program, and you can give me a call at 4333 and leave a message, or at the Wellness Resource Center, 3203. And I personally will meet with both of you if you'd like. It won't be a first. This happens on a daily occurrence where people will bring people they care about into. I wouldn't bring it up while she was drinking. I'd wait till the next morning or when she's sober. But I'd be direct and caring.
Okay. Thank you for calling, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay. The intervention, something that you touched on a moment ago, and obviously it is a complicated process. It involves consultation with a professional counselor, and that's something I think it's important to preface my next question, and that is just so people can get a little idea of what it means to have an intervention. And again, can't stress upon you enough, talk to a counselor before doing anything along these lines. What does it mean? What is an intervention?
The intervention process developed by Vernon Johnson at the Johnson Institute in Minnesota is a process where you start with the significant others, they're called, the people surrounding the person that doesn't want to deal with it at the time. And a lot of times in a counseling situation, you'll see them first. Now, they would come into the clinic and say, I don't know what to do. This person, they're not showing up, they're blowing off work, they're getting in trouble, and they're going crazy. They don't know how to handle it. So you get the people surrounding this person together. It may be the employer, the family, the children. They are trained, as you said, by a professional counselor with a list of very specific things that person did.
Mm-hmm. So they're documenting
behaviors.
Unbeknownst
to the alcoholic.
Right. Okay.
And you get the person at a time, hopefully when they're sober, like Sally was saying, and they're confronted, and it's very powerful, it's very dynamic, and sometimes that love will break through. Children sometimes will break through by saying, I just won't bring anybody home because you're drunk, and I'm embarrassed.
So people are more or less saying, when you do this behavior, when you are drunk, I feel this way, or you do these things and it makes me feel embarrassed or upset.
these types of things come out, it's that true emotion that breaks down defensive walls, because with this type of illness and chemical dependency, the denial is very, very strong, and it's really hard to break down the walls that people have developed. And they'll keep coming back with things. That's why the things are very specific. On Tuesday, September the 3rd, at 3 o'clock, you came in, fell down, threw up on the carpet. We cleaned it up, put you in bed. Very specific, so that because they're going to keep coming back with things, and they just keep bombarding the person. And many times the person will finally break down and say, I give uncle, I'll go to treatment. And it's very a very dynamic process.
And that's something that happens as a last resort?
Many times the people will want to try something else before they'll go to a full-blown intervention and pulling all these people together to be trained by a counselor to carry off this process.
And I think you need that counselor if you're in that group, because sometimes this doesn't work. Sometimes the person that you're confronting gets very, very angry. And we as alcoholics tend to be very manipulative and can put the blame on you very quickly. And the intervention is good because everyone's there shooting the facts at you constantly.
Okay. Now, do most interventions involve sanctions?
Such as,
for instance, if you do not stop drinking, I'm going to leave you, for instance.
Usually there's something similar to that. We call it the ace in the hole. And that's the last card that's played many times at the intervention. And that last card may be by the employer. If you don't go to treatment, next time you goof up, you're out of here. If the wife says, if you don't go to treatment, one more failure, it's divorce time. And there has to be, I think, the trump card that isn't always played, but sometimes is the last play of the game.
Okay. Now, of course, not everyone's at that last stage. How would you distinguish between alcoholism and problem drinking?
That's a real good question.
Do you plan your day around drinking? Do you, on a Monday, start planning for Wednesday evening? Is alcohol and partying on your mind, and you can hardly wait to get out of class because the day's going to be over soon, and you can meet your friends at the bar and really relax, and that's a problem. That's not necessarily an alcoholic, but that's a real problem. When you start thinking about all the stress and strain, and that alcohol can make you feel more relaxed and able to handle the situation, and you start planning your weeks and your days around the next good time, you better take a good look at yourself.
All right. Obviously, this is such a big and broad topic that we could go on for probably 3 or 4 weeks on the show. I encourage you out there, if this is something that is a concern to you, if this is something that you're interested in hearing about or in receiving literature on, then call them up at the Health Promotion Desk at Wellness Resource Center, 3200, Alcohol and Drug Information, 3203. Sally's office, great resource, 4333, and Mark, Dr. Minelli, 6992, is that correct? Okay. This is just, again, an incredible subject. People need to remember. Oh, again, before we leave, real quick, what is it going on this week in the pool party?
Okay. From 7 to 11 in at the SAC pool, we're having a DJ and water basketball, volleyball.
And what time is that?
7 to 11. Come on out and have a natural high.
And that's for anybody, right?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Listen, next week on Crosstalk, political correctness and multiculturalism. Stay tuned on MHTV for All Kidding Aside right now and Contraband on 91 Rock FM at 11. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Jason Laker for Crosstalk.
This has been Crosstalk on MHTV and 91 Rock FM. Tune in again next Tuesday night at 10 o'clock for Mount Pleasant's only locally produced current issues program, Crosstalk.